The method. Getting started. Why is active listening important in negotiations?
That's actually an excellent question, and one that I discuss with my clients quite frequently, because it's one of the biggest challenges that all of us have in having conversations, especially if we're feeling the pressure of a negotiation or we're in conflict perhaps with the other party. A lot of times the things that we would do naturally in other relationships or other contexts, we sometimes forget to do, or we just we find harder to do. And so the first step is to check your state of being. Am I doing okay right now? Do I need to take a breath? Do I need to take a break perhaps even before I come back into the room and discuss this again? You need to be able to focus. You need to be able to give people your attention. And the key is to making sure that the element of interest is still there. If you're truly interested in what someone is trying to say and their side of a discussion, then a lot of the other things that I would speak to after this, you will probably do quite innately. You'll just do it. If we're truly interested, we will ask questions, thoughtful questions. We will listen better. We will do the things like repeating things that people say to make sure we've heard them right. We will do rephrasing that is recommended in active listening sessions. So we will do those things. We will ask questions, we'll ask for clarification, we'll try rewording what we've heard to know whether or not we've heard it right. Another thing is sometimes writing things down on something that both of you can see. So that could be a shared screen, computer screen. It could be on a flip chart if you're in the same room. Finding some way to make sure that what you think you're hearing is in fact what you're hearing. I've sometimes reached the end, almost the end of a negotiation or a mediation, and said, I'd like to just make sure that we're all really clear on what we're hearing, because we're all nodding our heads right now. We all appear to agree, but can I just write it down and make sure that we're capturing this right before I go back to my office and write this up? And when we do that, it's quite surprising sometimes that people who up till now have been nodding their heads and quite happy with the conversation start going, actually on that point, that's not at all what I thought we were talking about. And that's just normal. That is just, it's the same reason why four people can stand on a street corner and afterwards, they'll see an accident, and afterwards you'll get four different accounts of that accident. It's just difference in perception, difference in reference points. So it's important to test for that. And so, things like making sure you're paying attention, being respectful, asking for clarification, and doing everything you can to make sure that you've heard people correctly is really important. If you do that with sincere interest, though, again, the details of what exactly you do and how you do it will be much less important. Because if people sense that you're interested, they'll engage differently too. If you don't have the sincere interest, but you use all of these methods that we're talking about, they'll be far less effective. If you know I'm interested in what you have to say, chances are it won't matter if I do that exactly right.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point.
One of the challenges I receive from people, especially if they're in a conflict situation, and especially a high conflict situation, where let's say one of the other parties at the table has breached a previous agreement. Perhaps they've broken trust in some other way, or acted in a disrespectful fashion, or done something illegal that has also violated the relationship. A lot of times people will say, well, I can't respect them, or I don't really care what they have to say because I don't trust them. Those are very common things for people to think, to feel, and to say. And so they respond accordingly. They disregard what other people are saying. They spend their time creating arguments in their own minds as to the other person's comments. And so that can be very destructive to a negotiation or a consultation process and to the relationship, obviously. That has to be dealt with before you can move ahead. I've been in negotiations sometimes for months on end and seen things stalled or worse, escalate into negative conflict behaviors, and or sometimes people just walking away and saying, that's it, we're not doing this, because those pieces haven't been dealt with. And yet I've also seen other negotiations where things have been going badly, where people have stopped, reconsidered their own approach to the other parties at the table. Perhaps it's the result of an apology. Sometimes one party might say, actually regarding that previous violation, I am sorry. I'm very sorry that I breached trust with you. I do value our relationship. Sometimes that allows somebody to come back in with more respect and more interest. But even if they don't, it's incumbent, I believe, on each of us to be able to approach the conversation with that interest. And you can do that even if you're delivering hard news. A successful negotiation doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to give people everything that they want. Sometimes you have to present tough information. Perhaps you've done an audit in advance and you know how they've spent the money from an agreement. And you have to deal with that accountability piece. But you can do that with interest in what's important to them. You can do that with interest in the relationship between yourself and them at this table. You can do that with sincere interest in the ongoing relationship between your organization and the other one. And even if you're ending that relationship, I believe that if you end it with an attitude of sincere interest and respect, you'll come up with an ending to that relationship that is much better for both of you in terms of where you leave yourself in the process and your ability to depart from that relationship in a way that, again, you can live with, and also in ways that are better socially, politically, and that affect other people.